Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace. It is lovely to have you here. I have been in the worst reading slump that I have ever been in for a good few weeks, maybe even a month at this point. And I think that that is due at least in part to the fact that I haven't really been mood reading, which inherently I am a mood reader at my core. My opinion on a book will vastly change depending on if I was feeling the vibes at that given moment. And I haven't been doing this as much as I normally would, mostly because I've been reading a lot of books for videos, which I'm not complaining about at all because I've read so many more books this year than I normally would have done because of making all of these videos. And I love making them, I have such a fun time. But I think I just need to get into the habit of every now and then going back to my roots and just picking out a book that I feel perfectly aligns with my mood at that moment. So the plan for today is to have the most cozy bookish day I possibly can, pick out a new read based on whatever I am craving right now, and head out to do a cute little reading date in a cafe. And I think I'm gonna do some book shopping as well. Not too much. I try not to buy too many books these days because my physical TBR is so excessive and I work at a library, so I have very easy access to nearly any book that I could want. But there is one book that I know that I want that I have seen at the library but slipped out of my grasp because it was already on hold for other people, and I'm hoping that my local bookstore will have that one in, and maybe I'll have a little browse while I'm there. Maybe I'll treat myself, we'll see. But first off, I'm gonna shop my own shelves and find a book that I am in the mood for right now. So, I think I have established that I am in the mood for just a proper fantasy, which I think I've been avoiding because I've been trying to read things quickly to get a lot of reading done for videos, and obviously fantasy books tend to be a little bit chunkier, and I don't feel like I can read them via audiobook, which is often my go-to strategy to get through books a little bit quicker, is to have an audiobook on in the background while I'm working on something, like while I'm crocheting or washing up or something. But I really struggle to take in fantasy worlds when I'm listening to an audiobook and learn all of the new names and things. So I feel like to properly appreciate a chunky fantasy, I need to sit down and properly physically read it and pay attention, which is definitely what I'm craving. I really want to just get lost in a fantasy world. So I have a couple of options. I have A Darker Shade of Magic by V. Schwab, which I've been meaning to read for forever. I still haven't read anything by V. Schwab, or V. Schwab, as my boyfriend calls her. This is less classic fantasy in that it is set in London, but in fantasy versions of London. It's kind of more of a portal fantasy, which I personally love. I was a Narnia girly growing up, and I also read The Starless Sea last year, which I think is one of the best portal fantasies out there. And I've heard great things about the series. I've heard mixed things actually. I've heard some things about one of the main characters that made her sound a little frustrating, but I definitely want to give this series a try. I also have The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri, which is a little more intimidating. It's properly chunky. This is, I believe, an East Asian inspired fantasy with a lot of political intrigue, which I do tend to really enjoy. And there's also a sapphic romance in here, which you know I'm all about. Am I in the mood for this? I'm a little bit intimidated. But at the same time, part of me is craving just reading A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. The Priory of the Orange Tree was a book that I really enjoyed. I could read this, but oh, it's huge. But the last one, okay, no, the last one did take me over a month to read, I think. I definitely could have read it faster, but it read faster than I expected, but it's still a big book. How many pages is this? This is 862 pages, not including the glossary and the list of important people at the end. I don't know if I'm up for that right now. I think I'm gonna read a page or two from each of these and see what hooks me the most. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I think as much as the writing in here is gorgeous as always, I don't think I'm up to this right now. I think it might just stress me out having this much to read. So we're gonna put this back on the shelf for now. Between these two, I read a few pages of this one and was thinking, oh, this is really fun. And I think that the voice in here, the writing in here is a lot more snarky from the initial couple of pages that I read. And I do really enjoy that. But then I read the first couple of pages of this one and I think I'm already kind of hooked. And I think maybe I am craving the intrigue that this one should be able to give me, hopefully. I just want to be hooked by a book. I haven't been in quite some time and I think this could do that. So we're going with the Jasmine Throne. I'm starting another new series, but I'm excited. I think it should be fun. I'm gonna take the dust jacket off. I think this is the Illumicrate edition. I can't remember, honestly. I got it secondhand, but it's very pretty. So I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go to a cafe and get some reading done, hopefully get stuck into this one and do a little bit of book shopping. Everything bookish today. I just want a nice cozy day doing all of the fun things about books, reminding myself why I love them and why I don't have to be stressed that I am behind on all of the reading I need to do. I just need to take my time and read something that will bring me joy. So let's get going. Back home, it was very busy out there. So I did my little bookshop. Chris and I got some lunch, which was nice. But I think that we just forget that in the city on a Saturday in mid-November, the Christmas rush has begun. It was so busy out there. We tried, I think, about 4 different cafes before we could find one with seats free to just sit and read for a bit. And even when we were in there, it was so loud that we were just both very overstimulated. So I think I've read about 6 pages of this book. But I did manage to get the book that I wanted from Waterstones, and I may have gotten a couple of others. I had some points to spend, okay? It happens. But I'm going to try to properly actually get some reading done of this before I tell you about those. So I'm gonna curl up with a little drink and a nice new candle, I think, and get in the reading zone. Hello, I have properly done a chunk of reading now. I am a little over 50 pages in, which I know doesn't sound like much, but for me that's a decent amount of reading for the day. And I am enjoying myself. It was taking a little minute to get into, but I think that is just kind of the case with chunky fantasy because you don't really know what's going on for the first usually 100 pages. I'm still getting to grips with it. We have mostly been following the perspective of two different women, one of whom is a disgraced princess who has been sent by her brother, the emperor, to be imprisoned in what used to be a temple of what I believe is now a fallen kingdom. And the other woman that we're following works for the regent of this fallen kingdom. She is just a servant, but she signs up for the dangerous job of serving at this temple. This temple is very dangerous to get in and out of. There is a very steep, treacherous path up to the temple that's kind of carved out of stone into different creatures and people in a way that is designed to trap people. So it's a very dangerous job to work as a servant there, but it gets higher pay. So this character decides to go for it, and slowly we're beginning to discover that her history might be more linked to this place than we initially realized. The two characters haven't really met yet. I know that they're going to soon. It's in the blurb. That's obviously going to happen. But even just seeing them individually, I can see how the two of them could really fit together, and I'm interested from both of their perspectives. I think this is just going to be a book about some really interesting, cool women, which I'm very excited for. I'm really liking the vibes of the setting so far as well. This is clearly an Indian-inspired culture, and I don't think I've read a fantasy that was Indian inspired before, so I'm interested to see how that will factor in here. I'm also really enjoying, well, is enjoying the right word? There's a magical nature-based disease called the rot in here, and any kind of magic that is nature related I'm always interested by, and in a sense that reminds me a little bit of The Tainted Cup, which if you've been watching my videos for a while you probably know is my current favourite book of the year, so that's always a good sign. But I'm only really about 10% into this one, so we will see how it goes, but a promising start, and I'm happy to be reading a proper chunky fantasy again, going back to my roots. Oh, also while I'm here I'm going to show off my jumper. Look how cute this is. I got this from Joni, if you're wondering. It's also just so fluffy and cozy on the inside. Would highly recommend. Okay, shall we look through the books that I got at Waterstones earlier? So first off, the book that I actually went to find is When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll. I have not read any Emily Carroll graphic novels before, but I know that they are really well thought of, and like I said, this one came in at the library and instantly I just saw that cover and was hooked, and I got distracted reading the first few pages but then had to pass it on to another customer who was waiting for it, so I just knew I needed to get my own copy so I could finish it. I love the art style in here. It is so stunning, and it's all in this colour palette of just black, white and red, which I really enjoy. If you can't tell, this is a vampire story. I won't say too much because it's not too long, but this is about, I think, just an unnamed main character who arrives at the Countess's castle wanting to take her down, as many have tried before, but she is not prepared for what she finds in there. This is, I think, classified as horror. It's very gothic from the part that I have read. It really taps into the sensuality of vampires, in the history of vampires. I'm really just here for the vibes with this one. I love this illustration style and the creepy charisma of the Countess. I always love that in vampire stories. This is also the perfect setup because my boyfriend is about to run the Curse of Strahd campaign for one of my Dungeons and Dragons groups for the first time. If you don't know, if you're not a Dungeons and Dragons nerd like I am, then Curse of Strahd is the classic pre-set up campaign that is primarily vampire themed. It is a horror campaign where you are thrust into a new world with your adventuring party and you have to take down the very powerful vampire Strahd, who really just spends most of the campaign toying with you. So this really is the perfect thing to get me in the mood for that campaign, so I'm definitely gonna speed through this in the next couple of days. And then while I was there, I ended up getting a couple more books. First off, I got a book that I do technically already own, but I have the secondhand copy, and this new edition came out This is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I have not read this one, shamefully so, getting a second copy. I've been meaning to read it for so long now, many years, and I loved Piranesi by the same author. It is one of the best written books that I've ever read, and I've heard such good things about this one, but it is another brick. Another one I'm pretty scared to read because I think it's like 800 pages. Let me check. 846 in this edition at least. This is a story set in England in the early 1800s during the Napoleonic Wars, where magicians are initially believed to have died out, but two are found left standing, and these two magicians end up kind of battling it out to prove who is the cooler magician, basically. I don't know too much more about what happens in here, but it just has so many great reviews, and great reviews from incredible writers who say they wish they'd written this book. It's one of their favourite novels. I don't know why, but it's giving me the vibe of kind of an Erin Morgenstern situation. I guess the plot is a little reminiscent of The Night Circus, in that it's two magicians battling it out to see who is the better magician, but I'm just pretty certain that I'm gonna really enjoy this one and appreciate the writing in here, and I really want to get to it very soon, so I treated myself to a fancy edition. I also just am a hardback girly. I feel like that is more unpopular these days. I feel like most people prefer paperbacks, which I totally get. They are more practical, but there's something about a hardback to me that just feels more like a classic tome, just sets the vibes for me. And I hate cracking a spine, so this does get around that, even though it is going to be hefty if I ever want to read this out anywhere. But yes, hopefully having a new edition will also persuade me to get to this one soon, because the other copy I had has been sitting on my TBR, I think since about 2019 or something stupid. So now I have absolutely no excuse. I have two copies, it must be read. And then the third book I got, I had no intention of picking up, but Chris actually pointed it out to me and said, "Oh, that one's pretty. What do you think?" And I said, "Oh no, I don't think I want to read from that author, but fine, I'll have a look." And I just read the first kind of page or two, and I really like the writing style in here. And this is Januaries by Olivie Blake. I have never read anything by Olivie Blake, and I've always been nervous to. I don't know why, but something about her work just didn't really appeal to me in the past. Maybe because it was so TikTok famous. I don't know if I was being a bit snobby there. But this really is a gorgeous edition. Look at that sprayed edge. Oh, stunning. So that caught my eye, but I hadn't realised that this, I don't think, is actually tied in with any of her other work. This is a collection of short stories, and I'd kind of assumed that they might tie into kind of the Atlas 6 universe or any of the other books that she's written, but I think that these can all be read separately. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I'm really intrigued by the writing that I read from the start of this. I think from what I've heard, Olivie Blake has very lyrical writing, which is my personal taste, definitely. I like it when things are a little bit pretentious, you know? And I also think that as a writer myself, it would be really good for me to read more short stories. I did a video on short stories earlier in the year where I read a few really great ones, and I said that I wanted to read more, but I haven't read many since, I'll be honest. So I want to get back into that, and I think that this could be a really interesting collection. And I also like that it feels quite wintry. I don't feel like I have too many books that have a wintry vibe to them. I have a lot of autumnal books on my shelves, but I would love to have some for kind of January, February, maybe even March months when it's really dark outside and you need something fantastical to make that fun again. When you're in those final few months of winter and you just want daylight again. I need a book that's gonna re-infuse winter with some kind of magic, and I think that this could be that book. So that is my little book haul. I haven't been to a shop to buy books in so long. I really am trying not to buy too many books just because my physical TBR is already so crammed. But I think I have been much better in the second half of this year, so a little treat every now and then is okay. So a mixed day in terms of reading and book stuff. It has been good in terms of realizing once again that we desperately don't want to live in the city anymore. not so much. I cannot wait for a day when we have a lovely little cottage in the countryside and I can have one of these reset days that is just sitting in my window seat, looking out into the fields, hearing the sheep. But for now, we take the wins where we can get them, and I'm very glad that I could pick out a book that I actively feel excited for rather than feeling like I needed to read it. And I will definitely let you know what I think when I'm done with this one. I'm excited to see where this one goes. But now I think that Chris and I are going to watch one of the new episodes of Arcane. If you do not watch Arcane, please do. I keep thinking that I have struggled so hard with finding 5-star books this year. I've had kind of 1, maybe 2, but if I could include TV shows, Arcane would be instantly in there. It is one of the best pieces of media, one of the best stories I have ever come across. The amount of nuance and the quality of the art, the experimentation that it takes, just incredible. Cannot recommend enough. But speaking of favourites, if you have watched this far and would like to comment something but you are not sure what, I would love to hear what your favourite book of the year so far has been for science purposes. It doesn't have to be one that was released this year, just your favourite book that you have read so far this year. We'd love to know. I've also asked this over on my Instagram, and if I ever do kind of interactive things, then I tend to do it over there. So if you'd like to follow me, feel free to check it out. But I think I will wrap up my cozy, bookish, getting out of a reading slump day there. It's very unclear if it's been a success yet, but I have hope. Fingers crossed. I am on the way up and out of this reading slump. I would love to find another 5-star by the end of the year, and I think that I need to be out of this slump in order to do that. Please let me know how your reading has been going. Have you been struggling towards the end of the year? I really hope your reading has been going well and you've not been in the trenches like I have. Either way, thank you so much for watching and spending the day with me. It has been lovely, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye bye.